So forget like QR codes, right? Now that we have AI, we can actually do what I call air codes, right? AIR codes, which is artificial intelligence retina codes, right? So AI can, you know how QR codes are like stuck with just like, I don't know, I think is kilobytes of data, right? And then we're stuck with that. You can't go above that. We're just like stuck with these kilobytes of data. Now that we have AI, right, we can actually optimize the data. We can have like a new format essentially that can hold like a lot more data, like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 megabytes of data, right? Okay, cool. So how did I even get here, right, mentally? So today is I know it's Easter weekend. I think yesterday was Easter Friday, so today is Easter Saturday, right? So today I woke up this morning, I was watching Acapulco Bay, which is like a soap opera telenovela that my mom used to watch when I was a kid, right? I was a child. She was like, she never missed any episode of it. So I was watching it. But when I was a child, I didn't quite know what it was all about. I didn't quite get the force. Okay. So I decided to God just brought it back to my memory today, and I started watching it, right? So what I was watching, I was like, okay, let me go and fix myself breakfast. I fixed myself some breakfast. I was like, okay, it's time to pray. Let's go and pray. Then I finished praying, and then I came outside here to just collect a little bit of sunlight, right? And then I started thinking about and then I was browsing through Twitter, and then I saw a CD-ROM attached to the back of an iPhone, you know how MagSafe accessories attached to the back of the iPhone, right? But this one wasn't MagSafe. It was a MagSafe CD-ROM-ish. So I was like, now that we have so out of ignorance, I don't know how CD-ROMs works. I just knew that in the early 2000s and then in the 90s, stroke early 2000s, we had a lot of my dad had all these computers and they had CD-ROM drives. They were called optical drives at the time. And I used to pieces them. I wanted to know what was inside. So I used to pieces a couple of them. And when I looked inside, I would see this tiny, the whole mechanism to spin the CD, right? And then there would be this tiny lens, right? To read the CD, right? To read the data of the CD, right? So I thought, okay, now that we had cameras, right? Now that we have these iPhone cameras, these really nice, powerful cameras, can an iPhone camera, my thought initially was can an iPhone camera read data off a CD, right? Can an iPhone camera mimic an optical drive? So you had let's say you had I don't know, let's say you had 50 cents in the club CD. Do you understand? You know that album that's Beg, is that Beg for Mercy or Get Rich or Die Trying? I think it was Get Rich or Die Trying. So let's say you held that CD-ROM drive in your hand. You flip it to the back, you point your iPhone at it, and then your iPhone would read the back of the CD, and then you'll be able to listen to the club on your phone. That was the magical thing in my head. I was that was so fucking nice. So I gave it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was it doesn't quite work like that. So it kind of talked me out of my ignorance, essentially, that CD-ROM drives, optical drives, they are called optical drives because they actually use laser to decode the CD. So I was I didn't want to give up on the idea. I was but iPhones have LiDAR, right? And he was yeah, iPhone has LiDAR, but the kind of LiDAR on iPhones, they can't they are not designed to read CD. He explained it, density essentially. It's too dense for that kind of LiDAR to pieces. I was okay, but what about LiDAR and GPT-4 vision or something? And he was yeah, but it still can't work. So I was I was pretty disappointed. So I was okay. And then I started thinking about it, right? Would I even want to live in a world where CD-ROMs came back and they were being plastered on walls everywhere? And I was no, why no? Well, because I remember back in those days too, yeah, CD-ROMs, they usually scratch. They would scratch if you they didn't have durability essentially. They're not the most durable thing. Now contrast that with QR codes, which are it's just paper. And they are naturally biodegradable, it's just paper. Do you understand? You just print it. Right? So I was okay, instead of going down this CD-ROM thing, God now puts in my head that, they also put in my head that we should just try to optimize QR codes instead. Now that we have AI, yeah, why don't we optimize QR codes instead? How can we get QR codes from being stuck at I think it's 3 or 4 kilobytes of data, or maybe 35 kilobytes. It's just like very ridiculous amount of like data that the QR code can store, right? And we're in 2025, and we are so close to like, and we have like this PhD level, like, let me use the English of like, I forgot who said it. We have like a nation of like super intelligent AI, essentially, because that's what all this like. We have all this AI essentially. This is really super intelligent AI, right? So why can't we optimize QR codes instead? Why are QR codes still stuck at 3 to 4 kilobytes, right? Why can't we like optimize QR codes? So I threw a question at ChatGPT, and it was like, hey, yeah, that's like even a better approach, right? Let's try to optimize QR codes. And then it was getting stuck on it. We were like going back and forth with it, right? And then, the whole speed just reminded me about like the human eye. It was like, why don't we just design, the only remind me about the human eye, like, why don't we just design the QR code like the human eye, the new improved AI optimized QR code, right? Like the human eye. You know how the human eye has like millions of like cone rods, right? I learned this in biology class in secondary school. I might be forgetting it, but I know that the human eye has like it's cone and something cells, right? The human has cone, like, has a lot of like millions of cone rods. I think they're called cone rods in the eye, right? And there are millions of them, right? So what if we created like a QR code? We patterned the QR code after that. Do you understand? What if we mimicked what if the new QR code worked like that, right? So enter AR codes, AIR codes, or AIR codes, right? Which are artificial intelligence retina codes, right? The retina, artificial intelligence, because it is only AI that can decode it. You need like a GPT-4 level AI to decode the QR code in codes now, right? The retina essentially. But the data will be encoded in retina format, right? So I was like, okay, so that's where the AI part is, and then the retina part, the R part starts for retina. So it's AIR instead of QR. We have AIR, which is air codes, right? Artificial intelligence retina codes, right? So I was like, okay, let's just take it very basic. Let's not even make it like super complicated, right? We have all these super resolution cameras. We have AI. We could just do trade by barter. We could trade punch for punch, feast for feast. Just say like, okay, every pixel in the retinal code, right? Represents like a byte of data. Do you understand? We could just go down. You could just do pound per pound like that. I'm sorry. Give me a second. So I generated a 768 by 768, which is retina air code essentially, which is like essentially 589,824 pixels according to ChatGPT, right? And that would give us about, if you divide it by 8, right, that would give us about 24 bits. Let's say it's 24 bits per pixel, right? That's like 14,000. So essentially, to give us like, if you divide it by 8, that would be like 1.7 megabytes of raw data. So essentially, just like we have not even done anything, right? We have not really done like a lot of like optimization. We just went with a different model essentially. We just cloned the human eye essentially, and we converted into like a QR code, right? And we get like an iPhone camera to take an image of it, and then we get like GPT-4 to read every single pixel, right? On that QR, on a 768 by 768 like QR code, air code, right? We're already on 1.7 megabytes of megabytes of raw data. Do you understand? And that's like a lot of data. That's a lot of like data. Do you understand? But we have not even optimized it. When you optimize it, we could scale this thing up to like, say, 100, 200 megabytes of data if you optimize it properly. We can even go as far as 700 megabytes, if it's up to like a gig, depending on like, but that would like really like be pushing the limit of it. We can push it up to like 1 gigabyte. You know, imagine a QR code that had like a gigabyte that could hold like a gigabyte of data. Imagine how it would change the world, how it would revolutionize the world. Do you understand? So it means that restaurants, like, it will change everything. Do you understand? It will change every single thing. It will change everything. Oh God, it will be so nice. Just imagine that. Imagine that. Okay, so anyway, Sha, that's like that's part one of the air code thing, right? So I printed like I had ChatGPT 4 image generates like an example air code with, again, like I said, with 768 by 7 at the resolution of 768 by 768, right? So again, I don't want to be the one. You know, the problem with this one is that I think this one is just like natural. This one, most of the idea Holy Spirit gives me, like, they're generally bigger than me, but this one is like properly bigger than me. Like I don't even know where to start from, right? So I would like if like somebody bigger can work on something like this. But you know, everybody just wants to work on AGI, and I'm like, AGI can fucking wait. Let's fuck. Okay, this is part one. I'll obviously have a part two. So they are called air codes, right? Not QR codes. They are like the senior brother. They are the AI. They are the AI equivalent, AI optimized, AI supercharged. That's the English word I'm looking for. The AI supercharged equivalent of a QR code. So they are called air codes. Artificial Intelligence Retina codes. The end. Courtesy of the Holy Spirit. Let's not forget that. Not the only the Holy Spirit.